Modern animism makes the oldest spiritual belief easy for today's seekers to understand, practice, and live. Stay tuned and grow with us. Rarely do I talk about books on this podcast because this is an animist channel and most books talk about animism and they don't actually talk about animism. And the ones that do aren't talking about animism, but you can see it baked in there if you know what to look for. So it's kind of indirectly in there. But today I have to share Dirt Witch, Unearthing the Secrets of My Land by Atulia K. Bingham. It's an autobiography about a woman's experience of regaining, relearning, or remembering her connection to the land. She never says the word animism, but I think it's a beautiful example of how a modern person can really embody what it means to live in an authentic relationship with the all that is, whether you have that label or not. And speaking of the all that is, let's pause and acknowledge the all that is before we go any further. So I honor and thank the earth for providing us with a home, bodies, food, land to shelter us, and boundaries that help us to live with integrity. I honor and thank the air for giving us inspiration, ideas, and communication to connect with the beings of this world and those in the next. I honor and thank the fire for the passion to create and the daring to destroy. I give thanks for the power and responsibility to use it well. I honor and thank the water for helping us to flow without grasping or withholding, so that we are always present in this moment, and for helping us to experience the fullness of all that is. I honor and thank the plant, animal, mineral, and human realms, our ancestors and cousins in this merry journey of life. We could not exist without you. May we always remember this and continue to live in harmony so that we uplift each other. Thank you. And thank you, dear listener, for being here. I know that shorts are all the rage now, but I think that you know that animism can't be digested in sound bites. It requires context and story if you really want to get it. So I appreciate that you come here and spend a little time with me. And if you find the podcast available, please like, share, comment, or subscribe if you haven't already, because it's all about the algorithm, isn't it? Sad to say, but it is what it is. And when you like, comment, subscribe, share, you help the channel to find its way out of the bottom of the barrel where you can find it. So it really matters. Thanks for your help. So I really loved Dirt Witch. I love when the light comes on for anyone and they get it. By that, I mean that they have an epiphany. They see themselves, they see a truth, or they see something beautiful in nature or in someone else. It's like a light comes on, and once that happens, it changes the way the world looks thereafter. It may diminish, but that knowing never leaves. And this book has so many of them. So I got a digital book, and I didn't start highlighting from the start, but I want to share what I did highlight because I think you will dig it too. And if you haven't begun your journey into animism, it may inspire you to start or to change your path so that it's more effective. So many people go for the flash and peak experiences and miss the grounded, stable, durable things that form the foundation of any spiritual practice. Dirt Witch reveals those. So let's see what the author says, shall we? Okay. So what you need to know about the story before we begin is that the speaker is an almost 40-year-old single childless female who was working in Thailand teaching English. She and two friends had talked about getting together to open a yoga studio on her land in Turkey. And as time got closer for them to do that, they admitted to each other and themselves that they really didn't want to do that. They went their separate ways, and the author, Atulia, arrives in Turkey with not much more than a tent and the intention to live on the land alone. Her friend tells her, "You can't live up there alone. There's no water, no electricity, in a tent." She begins to doubt herself, and then she writes, "I thought it might be the end, but now I see that's exactly what we have to think. That's the point we have to come to risk it all, and to find the pieces of us that we don't know exist. But no one has ever transformed within the safe confines of the tried and true." Y'all, let me tell you something. If I had $1 for every time I heard someone say, "I just want to be comfortable," I'd be a rich person. They say that like they aren't asking for too much. They're being humble and not greedy. So it's a reasonable desire. But here's the thing. Atulia is right. Comfort is seductive. It's the enemy of a natural life. Society beguiles us to fall asleep, and there's no way that you can find out what you're made of or have a truly authentic and connected experience if you're following the crowd and doing what you think you're supposed to be doing. It's not the way. If it were, we'd all be living the dream. But the people who are living in alignment with nature are outcasts. They're weirdos. Working in an artificial box with artificial lights 8 hours a day to pay someone else to rear your kids, and you only have 2 hours or 2 weeks off a year for yourself? That's insanity. When we have to go to a gym to move our bodies in unnatural ways because we sit all day long, it's pretty bizarre, don't you think? And yet, this is how so many of us live. So, we're only on page 12, and I'm already saying, you go, girl. The next quote I underlined happens when our author is in a tent under a dark night sky. She's scared of the dark, and Dirt Woman shows up. We aren't sure at first who or what she is. Dirt Woman seems like a spirit. She talks to her and reassures Atulia that all the creatures of the lands are her friends. That thought calms her down, and she writes, I felt something inside my heart stir, something I thought I'd lost or forgotten I'd ever possessed, belonging. This is perhaps one of the greatest ailments of the modern human. We spend our lives chasing relationships and jobs simply to feel we have a place, to feel connected, home. We contort ourselves into the most painful shapes for social acceptance because we think if society approves of us, we will belong, but it never works. Far below the surface, there's an all-pervading unease because the society to which we're trying so hard to belong has itself come unmoored long ago. Let that sink in. The society to which we're trying so hard to belong has become unmoored long ago. I know that struck a chord because you know it's true. There's no way to be healthy in an unhealthy society. The only way is to leave it. Think about anyone you know with an addiction issue. It could be alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, food, whatever. That addiction started to cope with their family or their social system. Everyone has a role. When someone adopts addiction as a coping strategy, what they're saying is, I don't feel connected. And how can you feel connected in a system that is disconnected and traumatized? You can't. I'm a trauma therapist, and I haven't seen anyone yet who has made that work. You can't get healthy, stop doing the problematic behavior, and go back to that sick system and fit in. One of two things will happen. You will either go back to functioning in a dysfunctional way to belong, which is not really belonging, or you'll leave. And most people don't leave because of what Atulia said in the first quote. It takes a crisis to be willing to risk it all. Staying is self-abandonment, and we need to belong so much that we may accept a dysfunctional system because it's better than nothing. And how can we trust that anything better will exist for us, especially if we've never had it? Okay, so back to the book. The next quote says, the only way I was going to understand the power of life was to join with it and allow it to communicate with me, to move into me. You can't understand life by killing it. So there's two parts of this that stand out to me. The first is the importance of joining with life. So humans are all about comfort and safety. This comes at the cost of separation. The more walls we build, the gates, the looks, the less safe we feel. Think about it. If you're old enough, you remember a time when childhood meant playing outside until the streetlights came on. You went outside in the morning and didn't check in until hours later. There was no cell phone. You didn't necessarily tell your mom where you were. You could be miles away on your bike, on the train tracks, in the woods, or swimming in a quarry, but you didn't get botulism. You didn't get sex trafficked, and you didn't break an arm. You were safe. Today, kids don't go outside alone. They can't navigate across the street by themselves. So who's safer? Who's freer? Who's more in tune with themselves and the world around them? The second part of the quote has to do with destroying life. I don't go on social media because it's all violence, power, and control all the time. If it's not another invasion, then someone has misused their power or taken a life. So we can do this, or we can follow the monk's example of walking 2,300 miles for peace. Have you seen those crowds? I'm delighted by how many people are paying attention to peace and asking questions like, how can I be this present, calm, and focused? If I'm joining with life, that looks like a peaceful path. It's a free path, not the walls, chains, and barriers to engagement. In the next moment that I highlighted, Atulia is talking to an olive tree that she calls Grandmother Olive. She's wondering how she can just hang out here without a job. And the tree tells her it's not about work, it's about beauty and adventure. It's a game. When you feel that, everything happens effortlessly. I know a lot of people would like to pack it all in, study spirituality, live off the land, and quit this rat race, but they have bills, children, and responsibilities. How can you let that go and trust everything will happen effortlessly? That's a challenge, isn't it? Your obligations don't stop because you've had an epiphany or a change of heart. It seems that Atulia doesn't have bills. She brought very little with her and doesn't have children or a spouse. I suppose there could be lots of takeaways from Grandmother Olive's words, but for me, it means travel light. Don't take on debt or responsibilities because those have to be paid. If you already have them, take care of those first. You can't be free until you do. Another quote is super short. Atulia is talking with Grandmother Olive, and the tree says, "You're not lost. There's a guidebook. Nature is the book." Now, if you have listened to me or any other animist from any tradition, you've heard this over and over. The answer to every question you could ever have can be found in nature. That might be the stars in a night sky, the rustling of the leaves, the summit of a huge mountain, or the stretching of a cat. The code is everywhere. You're already fluent in that language because it's part of your DNA. You just have to stop letting yourself be distracted and relearn the language. We do that the same way Atulia is doing it, by spending time in nature. I think this book covers about 6 months of time. Atulia spends 6 months living in a tent under the stars, having to figure out bugs, dealing with the heat of the summer sun, finding water, peeing, pooping, feeding herself, and providing for her needs while not having a job. She spends a lot of time on a patch of land figuring things out. She has to listen and learn, or she won't make it. And she gains the respect of her fellow creatures and forges a relationship with everything. A lovely way that Atulia shares her awakening to this is when she has this epiphany, and she says, "The thoughts and words were mine, but the tree somehow kindled them within me. Just as the land had inspired the dirt woman, the olive tree was opening my brain up to another kind of wisdom. It wasn't in it at all. The tree was a living being with her own life to live and her own aura. A chemical reaction was taking place between me and her. She was changing me." If you spend enough time in the water, under the moon, in the bush, or with an animal, you will discover that this is true of all creatures. We're already connected, but we're distracted. So we don't receive the communication that is always available to us from spirit and all the other creatures. We all know that when the forest goes silent, a danger is afoot. All the creatures of the forest are communicating with each other all the time. They do it with us too. And when we notice, we feel a sense of belonging and safety. We realize that we all look out for each other. If there is trust and an affinity, you have to cultivate and earn that too. People, and by people I mean plants, animals, minerals, spirits, and other humans, don't just give and protect and care because you're a special little person. They do it out of reciprocity. If you want this, you have to earn it. Treat other beings with respect. Acknowledge them. Consider their needs. Doesn't take a lot. Okay, and the next revelation, Atulia is conversing with a dude she doesn't like and doesn't want to be bothered. To be fair, she's a loner who doesn't really welcome company with anyone, but this guy seems less likable than most. She was polite but firm and let him know that he wasn't welcome, and she feels bad about this. So Atulia asked Dirt Woman if she was the one who took care of this man. Dirt Woman says, "You do it. When you real and no be afraid of your culture, you have power. Because real is real and lie is lie. Love never win. Pretend never win. He know you real. He know you right." What Dirt Woman is saying is that integrity matters more than manners. You don't have to be nice to everyone. Yearning for peace, community, and belonging doesn't mean your boundaries have to go out the window. When this connects with Atulia for the first time, she starts to notice how beautiful Dirt Woman is. Dirt Woman's dirty. She's got dreads. She's earthy. She doesn't bathe. She's really wild looking. But Atulia is noticing her inner beauty that comes from a space of truth. She's real in a way that she doesn't see in other people, and Atulia is beginning to see how much that matters. Later, Atulia agrees to teach a yoga class because she needs the money. Despite having a dream of having a yoga studio, she let that go a long time ago, and now it feels like drudgery. Dirt Woman asked her, "Why you no real?" Atulia looks at her and saw that Dirt Woman was uncompromisingly, unashamedly real. She was full of life, and the contrast made her ask herself, what am I doing here teaching when I had nothing of value to teach? That was the last yoga class she ever taught. She didn't know how she was going to make money, but she was beginning to feel her feelings, listen to herself, and value authenticity more than anything. How many times has this been you? But you notice the pain and keep on going on the same path. The cool thing about nature is that if you ignore the message, it will come back around. It typically starts in a whisper and gradually becomes a shout. But even then, you still don't have to listen. You can ignore it lifetime after lifetime. But there's another side of that too. Atulia doesn't get into this, but I've certainly seen it often enough. For some people, every whisper is a sign from spirit or their inner knowing. Only it's not. It's emotion mind. They get an idea or inspiration or worry even and chase it with this conviction that this is going to lead them to success, $1 million, their next love, or whatever. But in my experience, nature doesn't care about that. It cares about truth. And if you're searching for signs that take you to something other than truth, you're going to go down lots of scenic routes. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that you might want to test intuition and messages when they start to appear so that you know what is truly a message and what is a wish or something coming from your ego. Dirt Witch actually speaks to this. She says, later on, once I'd become more adept at earth whispering, the wind and shaking foliage would become a sign to me, a sign that some sort of communication was happening, that I was hitting a correct thought note, so to speak, but not yet. And then Dirt Woman says, oh, my dear, you mustn't imagine randomly. Everything is interconnected. Me, you, the land, and spirits. All spirits are really just part of the mind. But the trouble is, you've been taught that your mind is in your head. How can it be when it's not physical reality at all? It's in another realm. I don't know that this can be explained. I think that it's something that has to be experienced over and over again until your bones get it. We've been so conditioned to think and not feel, to consult experts rather than to trust ourselves, and to ignore nature and anything from the feminine energies. It takes a lot to undo that. Silence and solitude helps. Atulia's got lots of that. The next juicy bit that Atulia shares is Twilight doesn't simply hold power pockets. It hides other secrets, other magic. Because when the sun bows below the skyline and darkness comes out to play, so do the earth spirits and the land guardians. The voices within trees, rocks, and hills all become audible. I read this as saying that Atulia is having a lived experience of what it's like to be present during liminal time. It is active and alive. There's lots of potential then for magic. And when you're out in nature and are paying even a little bit of attention, you start to feel it. And there's no substitute for that. I took a group to Alaska last summer, and it was just magnificent. Alaska is a place where man has never had dominion. The plants and animals are truly wild. They rule, and they aren't shy. If you want to feel your nature and the authentic energy of the world around you, go there. Be outside at dawn or dusk. It's always strongest then. But you don't have to go to Alaska. You can be anywhere. But a place without noise or a lot of electronics is best. This is one of those moments of awakening that I'm talking about. When you first start to see the power of Twilight, you'll either be freaked out by it or fall in love with it. So I'm less than halfway through the book now, and I want to share one more passage because I want to leave something for you to discover for yourself. And this one takes place in June when nothing special is happening. And she says, I gazed at the dog roses now shriveling slightly. Praying mantis wobbled slowly as they moved from stalk to stalk. Everything knew exactly what it's doing. Nothing in nature seemed to be agonizing over where it was supposed to go or what it was supposed to be. There was no supposed to's for the grasshoppers or the tortoises. They just lived from their cores. I wanted to do the same, uncompromisingly, unapologetically. I wanted to be real, to live from the marrow of my being, work from it, do nothing other than embody it. But what was the real me? It's such a human problem, isn't it? It comes from living in a civilized society without initiations. Civility gives us roles and rules. Initiation gives us standing and identity. When you have roles and rules without standing and identity, it's easy to flounder around and guess wrongly about who you are and where you stand because people can have different understandings. And if I think one thing and you think another, who's right? It's complicated, but it doesn't have to be. As the book goes on, you start to see how she figures it out. It's not easy, simple, or linear, but you see the path. I think a book like this could inspire you on the path that is authentic to you. It could help you to learn how to look for yourself in the whispers on the wind or the swish of a cat's tail. You're everywhere, and you have a dirt woman who's acting as your guide. You just have to find her. So I love this book, Dirt Witch. It's a story of one woman's awakening to herself, to nature, and her place within it. I think most paths look something like this. So if it resonates with you, please check it out. I think you'll find it entertaining and filled with inspiration and wisdom. I think the modern animist path is an exciting one because you have to blaze the trail. If you didn't grow up in an animist community or with an animist family members, it's all you. And that's okay because all things are born, mature, decline, die, and are reborn again. Perhaps this is the beginning of an animist revival, starting with you. Let me know what your thoughts of the Dirt Witch are, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for being with me. Ciao.